All right, so back by popular demand, meeting my parents, asking whether or not we are doing another episode, and some friends reaching out and saying, "Hey, you gonna do another episode of that show that you did?" We're back. We're not doing a podcast. Is it we are not doing a podcast, or we're not doing the podcast? What is the actual title of the show, Jared?
Oh, I don't know at this point. I mean, we're not canceled, so I guess we can just say we're not WE''RE not doing a podcast. Make it flow a little better. That works
All
for
right.
me.
I like where we kept saying we are not doing the podcast last
That
show,
was
but
you. That was you, not me.
the
You.
YouTube title is "We're Not Doing It." It's kind of like I feel like Justin Timberlake in The Social Network dropped the make it cleaner, put an apostrophe, make it cleaner. All right, so first off, Derek Carr. Derek Carr has been spotting it up, spotted with the New York Jets. Robert Salah and Nathaniel Hackett at a restaurant in New Jersey. Nothing gets a party started like a restaurant in New Jersey. Derek Carr has been meeting with the Jets. He seems to be plan B. Should Jet fans be disappointed based on all the hype that we gave around them potentially getting Aaron Rodgers on Thursday?
Well, it was interesting seeing that Carr visited with the Jets over the weekend. And the thing that interested me the most in that meeting when we saw that picture, that restaurant seemed to be closed. No one was in it. It was Robert Saleh with Nathaniel Hackett, Derek Carr, and I would assume his agent, the four of them, at a restaurant. And I'm just curious who took the picture. Was it a fan of the Jets? Was it someone who was working in the restaurant? Leave it up to Jet fans when it comes to stuff like that. They will always find a way to get some sort of picture of meetings. I remember that was the case when Robert Saleh was interviewing for the Jets head coaching job a few years ago. Someone was camped out in the bushes outside of Florham Park, just seeing Robert Saleh's car pull up. So Jet fans will leave no stone unturned on finding out where a target of theirs is at the current time. But look, you got to give the Jets credit. They're doing their due diligence on bringing Derek Carr for a meeting because right now it's an unknown what's going on with Aaron Rodgers. Like, we know he's in the darkness retreat. He's going to be popping out any day, any minute, any week, any month from now. Who the hell knows? But you got to give the Jets credit. I think Derek Carr is a very solid plan B, but let's be a little more patient. I think you want to wait for the ultimate prize, and that's Aaron Rodgers. So I wouldn't rush to sign Derek Carr, and it looks like Derek Carr is going to take his time. So I think could be the best case scenario for the Jets. Wait and see what Aaron Rodgers is going to do, and if that doesn't work out, pivot to a plan B. Hopefully, Derek Carr wants to potentially play for the Jets, and those are your two best options. Quite frankly, one of Derek Carr or Aaron Rodgers needs to be a Jet. It really can't be anyone else, in my opinion.
There's really no other options because it's not like the Jets are the only team that is going after Carr. The New Orleans Saints have been either meeting with him or about to meet him, and the Saints desperately need a quarterback. You don't think that there's any other possibilities for the Jets other than Rodgers and Carr?
I mean, you're looking at potentially Ryan Tannehill or Jimmy Garoppolo. I know Jimmy Garoppolo is your guy, Mark. You and Jimmy G were actually born on the exact same day,
That is
literally
true.
November.
That is very true.
November 2nd, 1991. So, I mean, you do share a birthday with Jimmy G. I will say, though, Jimmy G is a little better looking than you, Mark. No offense. But
I may differ on that one.
But I mean, you can't rely on Jimmy Garoppolo because you know he's going to miss time during the season, and then you're going back to Zach Wilson at some point. So I'm out on Jimmy G. I don't hate Ryan Tannehill the way some other fans do, but you cannot sell to the fan base Ryan Tannehill. I think a good option is Derek Carr, but you want to go for the juggler. You want to get Aaron Rodgers because, quite frankly, Aaron Rodgers gives you the best chance to compete in the ridiculous AFC conference with the likes of Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, Trevor Lawrence, who's coming on now. Derek Carr, he can get this team to the playoffs, but you're realistically looking at a one and done scenario with that. And I know Jet fans are starving to make the playoffs. They haven't made it in over 11, 12 years, but you want to win the Super Bowl. You want to win the whole damn thing. And Derek Carr, he's not going to lead you to the promised land. I like him. I think you like him, Mark, but you want to go for the grand prize, and that's Aaron Rodgers with all the quirkiness that comes with him. So I'm going to be a little more patient. Some Jet fans don't want to be, but wait it out a little bit more. Let's see what Aaron Rodgers decides he wants to do, and then you go from there with a trade negotiation with the Packers.
I don't think Carr is necessarily the worst option, like you mean. I think with Derek Carr, you have to not be expecting Super Bowl or bust, because what really has Derek Carr done in the playoffs? I believe he's made the playoffs just once in his entire career. So that's not saying much.
0-1. He hasn't won a playoff game.
So he has made the playoffs once in his career. The numbers through before he got his first big deal are kind of similar to Kirk Cousins in terms of career-wise versus guys that not really similar to Kirk Cousins, sorry about that. But, they're just really not too overwhelming, to say the least. And I think that the expectations shouldn't be Super Bowl or bust with Derek Carr. But the thing with Derek Carr that you have there is that he is a top 11 quarterback in the entire league in the last 3 years. Now, I always like to look at the last 3 years, because using the last year is just weak, because you have a guy that we're going to get into later, Daniel Jones, contract season. When you're looking at just 1 year, it's hard to compare. Last 3 years, I think, is recent enough, but also short enough where we really could tell who are the best quarterbacks in the league. Now, just to give a note, for those last 3 seasons, top 3 quarterbacks in the league, Josh Allen's, Pat Mahomes, and Aaron Rodgers. So obviously, if you get Rodgers, that's why we were saying last week why he's the guy you want, that you would take. Someone like myself would be okay with him coughing and sneezing in my face for him to be a New York Jet. Derek Carr in that same category is 11th and is right around the same area as Russell Wilson. But a guy that's not far off is Ryan Tannehill. Someone that is very far off, according to what I'm using as approximate value from Pro Football Reference, is Jimmy Garoppolo. So Garoppolo, you could argue, would be a step down if you're looking at those consistent numbers. A lot of that has to do with Garoppolo's injuries and such over the last few years. But I don't think Tannehill is so far off from Derek Carr. So I think that if you're just looking at Derek Carr and Aaron Rodgers, and that's kind of the only options, I think you're just going to set yourself up for disappointment. And as a Jet fan, you should be used to disappointment year after year after year. I mean, look what happened when they had, a top 10 pick with quarterbacks in the last few drafts. 2018, Sam Darnold, then 2021, Zach Wilson, and colossal disappointments with that. And those guys in that same category, Darnold ranked 33 in that span, while Zach Wilson was ranked in the 40s. And you know how many NFL teams there are. That's over the amount of teams that there are. So I think that you have to temper the expectations. And I think you want to have a Rodgers and Carr. Those should be your top 2 options that are realistic. Because Lamar Jackson, although he would be great, the Ravens probably aren't letting him go. I don't really know what their options are. And there's just so few great quarterbacks that for them to let go of Lamar Jackson would just be very silly. So I think that your most realistic options, which is crazy that Aaron Rodgers is in that conversation. FanDuel earlier this week had Aaron Rodgers being favored to go into the Jets. So there is that possibility. In Vegas always knows something that we don't. But I think with the Jets, your top 2 realistic options, it is Rodgers, Carr. But I think Tannehill has to be number 3.
And when it comes to Derek Carr, you see so many people saying, like, don't let Derek Carr leave the building, because some fans are freaking out because they don't know what the situation is with Aaron Rodgers. I agree with you, what you just said in terms of the drop-off between Derek Carr and Ryan Tannehill. It really isn't that much. Ryan Tannehill, he gets a lot of bad slack for some reason. He's not that terrible.
You know why Tannehill gets bad slack? It's because he wasn't always a quarterback. He was a wide receiver back in college. And I think a lot of people looked at him as some sort of experiment. And people still really never took him that seriously, even though he's had a really great career. I mean, look what he did in 2019. Went to 3 playoff games and beat Tom Brady in his final season in New England. I mean, he's had a very good career. And
wasn't there was also an issue with him when the Dolphins were on Hard Knocks a few years ago. He didn't know which teams were in which division, so people just thought he was like some sort of idiot. He didn't know anything about the NFL, so maybe some people didn't like him for that. But I mean, Ryan Tannehill's not the worst option in the world. I mean, I would take Derek Carr, but when you watch some of Derek Carr's games last year, there were moments where he was really, really bad. I mean, he had one of his lowest completion percentages last year as well. I think he completed only like around 60% of his passes, which is near the bottom of the league. I mean, I would take Derek Carr, but I do think some people are making out Derek Carr to be some sort of savior. Trust me, if Derek Carr were to be the Jets quarterback option, by week 5 or week 6, Jet fans would lose their mind with this guy. I am sure of it because he makes some head scratching throws. He will frustrate a lot of Jet fans. So let's be a little more patient, wait out Aaron Rodgers. And if you can't get him, go to Derek Carr. Ryan Tannehill's not going to be great, but I mean, it's slim pickings at this point. This is what happens when you fail in the number 2 overall pick in Zach Wilson. You're not left with the greatest options in the world. So you got to choose with what you got.
And I'm sure Robert Saleh will really temper those expectations with Derek Carr and get the Jet fans very level-headed going into the season.
No,
I'm sure
that will talk so
be very much the case.
Or Ryan Tannehill. He'll talk glowingly if they get Jacoby freaking Brissett. You know Robert Saleh. He's going to talk glowingly about anybody. So, but that's coach speak. Who cares about that?
All right. So the Jets aren't the only New York team with some quarterback drama. The Giants may not have their quarterback like they thought they did. Daniel Jones potentially going to be a free agent, switching agencies. Now, normally the switching agencies story is really not that big of a deal, but in this case, it's kind of as weird because Jones is going from CAA to Athletes First. Normally, it would be the other way around. So, I mean, clap it up for the guys at Athletes First. That's a pretty good get for them, especially if Daniel Jones is going to make the money that they think he's going to be making. It seems that the New York Post was reporting that the Giants may be in on giving Daniel Jones 5 years, $190 million, which would put him at $38 million per year, which is less than Dak Prescott, Matt Stafford, and more than Kirk Cousins, which is just insanity. Do the Giants go all in for Jones, or given the slim pickings, do they get desperate and give him a ginormous deal?
Well, I think that reported contract that you were mentioning, I think that would be the best case scenario, quite frankly, for the Giants. I think when it comes to Daniel Jones, the Giants would prefer to give him a long-term deal where you could spread out some of that money towards the cap space for the Giants, because they have a lot of issues in terms of talent. They need to add some wide receivers to help out Daniel Jones potentially. They also need some help on the interior offensive line. Could also use some help at cornerback, some defensive line depth. So I think the worst case scenario would be franchise tagging Daniel Jones, because that $32 million, I think the franchise tag is that $32 million.
Yeah,
that goes
what it's around.
That goes up against your cap right then and there. So that $32 million, that hampers your ability to maybe pull off a DeAndre Hopkins trade, or maybe if a guy like T. Higgins shakes free from Cincinnati, if they can't pay him. You're talking about not being able to spend money elsewhere to really improve the Giants roster. Now, I know Daniel Jones had a phenomenal season, and he's worthy of getting paid. He should get what he's due, but it's a tricky situation. I mean, the agent switch definitely made this much more of a rocky situation between he and the Giants. You thought it was going to be smooth sailing, but clearly now that's definitely not the case. It's going to be interesting to see. I think ultimately this is going to result in them having to slap the franchise tag on him, which I think for Daniel Jones, it's not the worst case scenario because it gives him another year to prove, is he a potentially top 10 quarterback in the league? And then if that's the case, then you're talking about going from a $32 million cap hit to now you're talking about a guy who would be making $38+ million a year, maybe even $40 million a year, which is just wild to even think about that when you're saying Daniel Jones's name and $40 million a year. But it is going to be an interesting situation to see how this develops. It definitely got a lot more interesting between Daniel Jones and the Giants over the weekend with the agent change.
Are the Giants in a position to give Daniel Jones this much money? Like, are we sure that Daniel Jones is as special as we think he may be? Last season, he was phenomenal. Took the Giants to the playoffs. First 4 seasons, probably the best in Giants history of any quarterback through their first 4 seasons in the league after Eli Manning. But are we sure he's going to be that guy for the Giants moving forward? Do you think that that they should temper their expectations moving forward, kind of like Jet fans should do on who they're expected to get under center?
Well, I think the Giants, deep down, I really think Joe Shane and Brian Daboll didn't want to have this I mean, this problem's a good thing to have for the Giants, but they didn't pick up the fifth-year option. So they really indicated last year that they were willing to move on from Daniel Jones after the season, draft their own guys. So they're in this predicament, which is a good problem to have for them. But you got to give Daniel Jones a lot of credit. I mean, he had the best game of his career, quite frankly, in that playoff game against the Vikings. So you do get a lot of brownie points when you're able to perform at that high a level when the stage is that big in a playoff game. And I mean, it is a risk because if you do give him this sort of contract, you don't know how good Daniel Jones truly is. I mean, I think he is a top 12 to 15 quarterback. We're always talking about top 12 to 15. But if Daniel Jones is the guy you give a ton of money to, you could be in the same situation that a team like the Minnesota Vikings is in, a team like the Raiders.
Jones is top 12 to 15. Don't mean to put you in the spot, but who else is among that list? Who else is among the top 15? If Jones is top 15.
I mean, you're talking. I mean, I would say Daniel Jones is in the same range right now, maybe as guys like a Dak Prescott, a Kirk Cousins, a Derek Carr. They're good quarterbacks. You can win with them, but ultimately, are you going to win with them? It remains to be seen. It does help that the Giants are in the NFC, where it doesn't seem like there's as many hurdles to clear, other than a team like the Philadelphia Eagles, who have Jalen Hurts. The 49ers, will see if they resolve their quarterback issues, but they're a loaded roster. You know they're always going to be tough to deal with. It's not like dealing with the AFC, where there's this gauntlet list of quarterbacks you got to go through to get to the Super Bowl. But I think you can win with Daniel Jones. The answer is it's not as clear-cut as when you say you absolutely can win with Patrick Mahomes. You can win with Joe Burrow. You can win potentially down the road with a guy like Trevor Lawrence, maybe Justin Herbert. I mean, those are the upper echelon, creme de la creme quarterbacks. I think Daniel Jones still has a lot to show in terms of, can he be that guy?
I'm going to go through a list of quarterbacks. Tell me whether or not Daniel Jones is better than them. Okay?
All right.
Kirk Cousins.
Right now, I would say no.
Kyler
with
Murray.
With potential for yes, but no.
Kyler Murray.
Kyler Murray, yes. Because of the leadership of Jones, yes.
Wow. Joe Burrow.
No.
Derek Carr.
Yes, because I think there's more potential and growth for Jones.
Wow. Russell Wilson.
Oh my God. I mean, how do you erase last year from Russell Wilson? I mean, that was just so eye-opening in terms of horrific. I think you probably got to say yes at this point, because it was so bad for Russell Wilson last year.
All right, rapid fire. Ryan Tannehill, yes or no?
Yes.
Jared Goff, yes or no?
That's actually a good one to talk about too, because the Lions, they gave Jared Goff a 2-year deal where they kind of experimented. They didn't give him a huge cap hit. Look what the Lions did. They were able to improve their offensive core. I mean, they had so many wide receivers for him to throw to. So in terms of going back to, he is not better than Jared Goff.
Okay. Matt Stafford.
At this stage, I would say yes, because I think Stafford got his ring and he's checked out. He got injured. I think Stafford's good to go. Yes.
Jimmy G.
Yes.
Tua.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Makes sense. I mean,
it's
worth mentioning, because you say something like Daniel Jones in the top 15, and you gotta, put him to the other guys, put him to the test. All right, so we're gonna try this one. This one's gonna be tough. I'm gonna try to share my screen right now, so hopefully we could do this on a live Zoom. I want to know your thoughts on this one. All right, so apparently I cannot do this on this option, so never mind. Regardless, Alex Rodriguez posted a fascinating Instagram. I thought this was one of his upper echelon posts that he's ever done. Story, post. I can't get this out of my head. He posted the following. It was a picture of him with his legs very close together. If you know what a hot dogs or legs picture is on the beach, it was close. A-Rod stationary, and it just says book on the top, handwritten, underlined, and he wrote as a caption, decided to start writing my book on lessons learned in business and baseball. Jarrett, I know you're not much of a reader if it's more than 280 characters on Twitter. Will you be reading this?
I will read this book.
Wow.
I will definitely read this book. I mean, and he shouldn't title the book anything other than book. The book needs to be called Book. Okay. And he needs to dedicate it to all the people he's followed on Instagram who have posed on the beach, hot dogs or legs. That's who he needs to dedicate the book to. And I will 100% read this book because, I mean, he needs to include in the book all of the lessons that he's learned, which is what he's talking about writing this book, going back to what was going through his mind many years ago when he first gets suspended. He storms to Mike Francesa's studio to think that that would make him look even better. He's got to talk about that. He's got to talk about just lying about with the steroids nonstop. And he's also just got to talk about what he's been doing in his post-playing career as far as his business acumen in terms of real estate. There's so many things for him to do. I mean, what else? I mean, in terms of him also posing in front of mirrors, there are so many things that you can look forward to when it comes to this A-Rod book that will be titled Book in years to come. So, A-Rod, please write the book, and I will pick it up. This will be a bestseller in time to come.
All right. And A-Rod, if we keep doing more episodes and because the people keep asking for them, would love to have you on. I could ask way too many questions for your liking. Jarrett will just probably ask mostly about where he could get a good spot for VIP access at a Miami restaurant. But there's a bunch of questions. I mean, I just have a lot of thoughts on this. And one, do we really need a book on A-Rod talking about his lessons learned in baseball and in business? I mean, there's been so many great autobiographies. The Andre Agassi. We just even saw great biographies with Bo Jackson by Jeff Pearlman recently. Howard Bryant did Ricky Henderson that came out this last year with really in-depth looks. And I would love to see kind of an outside view of Alex Rodriguez, but we know Alex Rodriguez will probably never allow a non-curated view of his life. And another chapter that I would just love to see, speaking of which, when it comes to business, is on his A-Rod Corp podcast, which was out in like 2019, I believe. He had this segment on his show where I don't know if you ever listened to it. We should probably bring this to our show at some point. It's not as good as With It or Not With It, where he would just ask every celebrity stocks or bonds, stocks or real estate. Sorry, that was the segment. And it would just be, they'd talk about anything else. It'd be Kevin Bacon would be talking about his film career. And A-Rod would go, all right, lightning round, stocks or real estate. And Kevin Bacon would go, I own a house, so I guess real estate. And A-Rod would go, okay, favorite ice cream flavor. And it would just be like, it was just the most cringeworthy thing. It had nothing to do with the show. He would just go, stocks or real estate every single time. I want
like he was some sort of expert. Like he knew everything about stocks or bonds. My favorite part about him is also how he's like this lifelong friend of Warren Buffett.
Yes.
Like how he and him are like the best of buds. Like Warren Buffett wants nothing to do with this egomaniac at all. I mean, A-Rod, he's just got all these friends. I also want to hear about A-Rod and his failed bid to buy the Mets with Jennifer Lopez. Thank you, God, that never happened. Thank you, God. If A-Rod owned the Mets, I swear to God, I would not be as happy as I am today, Mark. All I know is that is certainly the case. But A-Rod, write your book. I'll read it. Thank goodness you're not the owner of the Mets, though.
It would have been great entertainment. It would have been a lot of talk for the podcast. The one thing for me, yes. Oh, definitely. Another question I have when it comes to A-Rod is, who is the more iconic superstar athlete when it comes to books? Now, because of this post. There's a lot I've been thinking about with this post. A-Rod just writing book with no other notes. And it clearly looks like the first page on a pool, or LeBron always looking at the first page of a book while reading a massive chapter book like The Godfather by Mario Puzo. Who is the more iconic superstar athlete when it comes to just being a fake genius when it comes to books?
Probably LeBron, because I can relate more to LeBron. I mean, I read the first page of a book and I'm like, I'm out. I have no attention span for any of this. So probably LeBron James. He's probably reading one or two pages, the same amount as me. I give A-Rod credit. He's going to sit down. He's going to write it in front of his pool in Miami with the hot dogs or the legs. Let him go for it. I mean, we'll see how it goes, but I give more credit to LeBron James because him and I can relate a whole heck of a lot more when it comes to book reading knowledge. I know you are a book connoisseur yourself, so I'm sure I would assume you would probably lean more towards the A-Rod route, right?
Oh, I mean, LeBron, he's just the phoniest person when it comes to that book. How he's always reading page one. Like, you got to just go to the pictures in the middle. At least you're in the middle and you can just look at the pictures and you're learning something. You can get so much from the pictures as you do from reading the book sometimes. Just do that, buddy. It's not that hard. A-Rod, I mean, a lot of us start things that we don't finish. And A-Rod, that's what he may be doing. Does he just hire a ghostwriter at some point? Probably. But will it be entirely curated by him? Of course, because with A-Rod, there's no cloudy days, unless when that was also another great post by A-Rod. Remember when he ended the engagement with J-Lo and he had like the song like "I Will Remember You," and it was just a picture of like framed of him with J-Lo across a table. I mean, that was just felt
the
bad
song,
for the
like
guy.
the song "I Will Remember You," like when someone dies, like that.
I think it was that. I have to double check.
You can never. That's a type of like song you can never post unless like you're at a bar mitzvah where you're remembering grandparents. Like honestly, that's the only time.
Grandma Muriel, please light candle number 9.
You should only play that song when there's a death. No, like
I don't remember what the song was, but it was really
God, not that
pictures you see out front of a wedding, and he had that on a table, and it was just him like scanning the room. That's an unbelievable. A-Rod is one of the best people to follow on Instagram, no doubt. All right, now for our final segment, with it or not with it. This is a really tough one. The Oscars are later than they usually are this year, but a movie that will probably not get nominated for an Oscar, but will be getting a lot of buzz. Cocaine Bear. Commercials are everywhere, all over social media. Jarrett, with it or not with it?
I mean, this is definitely with it. I mean, like, who thinks of this shit? Honestly, this
is a real story, Jarrett.
I mean, this is amazing. I mean, I'm gonna watch this. I have absolutely no idea what to make of this movie. This bear just snorts cocaine and he just goes absolutely crazy.
No. The cocaine falls from the plane on a bag, and then the bear is able to inhale it and then starts killing people. Although the real bear did not kill anyone, he just ended up running around and had a heart attack. So this is going to be like a killer bear movie. This may be Gen Z's version of Jaws.
I mean, at this point, Cocaine Bear, the way the Oscars are going, it's definitely going to win awards. I mean, what other movies are to win these days? Cocaine Bear, I will definitely say with it. I will definitely check that out when it comes out.
I'm going to say with it, but not when it's in theaters. I don't think it's a movie that people are going to run to the theaters and see. And I think when it comes to people, we're saying the with it or not with it people, they will not be running to the theaters to see this one. I think that they're more bigger spectacles is something that someone that is a part of the with it crowd would be seeing in theaters.
Creed 3, you go to the theater to see.
Yeah, Creed 3, maybe. I think that would be something that's maybe one of the Marvel movies, maybe something that is more heralded for the Oscars. That's something people would go see at theaters. But I think come streaming time, I believe it is supposed to be on Amazon Prime after its a short run in theaters. I think that's when it's going to be with it. That's going to be when the with it crowd is going to be, hey, before we go out, maybe let's watch Cocaine Bear. Or, hey, have you seen Cocaine Bear? And it'll be the one movie that if you're not watching, you feel like you missed out when it's on Amazon Prime. It's going to be like what's becoming The Last of Us on HBO Max. I haven't seen it yet, and everyone's asking if I've seen it, and I have no idea what to say.
The title of the movie just adds intrigue. Like you have to see it. I mean, what, a bear doing cocaine? I mean, you're automatically interested in seeing what this movie's about. So, I mean, good job to the directors making the title. I mean, not trying to be too creative, because you're probably sitting in a room saying, how can we come up with a creative name for this type of movie? You know what? Just screw it.
No. It's Cocaine Bear. There's no other way to do it.
Just go with that and see if people will come and watch it. We'll see. We'll see how they do.
Trivia question. Who is the director of Cocaine Bear? You're going to be shocked. With that face, you were going to be stunned.
I'm gonna either guess Mike White from White Lotus or Will Ferrell.
No, Elizabeth Banks.
Good for her.
Yeah.
Good for her.
And it will also be one of Ray Liotta's last films ever. What a run for Ray Liotta.
Oh, wow. I'm gonna definitely see that now.
Yeah. So
Definitely.
Jared giving his salute to the good fellow himself. All right, that is it for us. Unless Jared has anything to add, we got a lot packed in today with Derek Carr potentially going to the Jets, Daniel Jones, and Cocaine Bear, most importantly, and also A-Rod, of course. That is it for us. We will probably be doing these episodes on Thursdays because of a vacation schedule with President's Day week. Jared and
Look at us. 2 episodes that we're taking PTO days.
We're already taking a vacation.
What a bunch of spoiled brats we are.
Yeah, this is really where this podcast is going. So we will both be away on Thursday. So we are doing this episode today, but it will be on Thursdays moving forward. So we're not doing a podcast, probably the quickest podcast you'll ever see with people that are 100% there, 100% sober, which is a huge plus and something a lot of podcasts cannot say itself. That is it for Jared Least, Mark Weber, and we hope you continue watching and not just my mother and father.